Empress Thalis Varen leaned forward on her throne of obsidian-veined crystal, her 4 primary arms folding with deliberate precision, as High Chancellor Vorin unfurled the holographic treaty scroll. The Imperial Council chamber hummed with the low thrum of suspensor fields, crystal spires refracting light into sharp blades across the faces of her advisors. "The Kalor Accord binds us," Vorin intoned, his voice a resonant chime through the translation field. "To secure the frontier shipyards against the Draven incursions, we must host their envoy, a human named Commander Mara Ives, and her juvenile dependent in the heart of Varen Prime." Thalis's crest flared subtly, a ripple of violet scales betraying her disdain beneath the mask of imperial calm. Humans. Primitives elevated by accident of galactic drift, their vessels little more than jury-rigged hulks scraping by on frontier edges. What need had the virile empire for such chaff in its core? Yet the Accord's calculus was ironclad. Kalor's alloy forges countered Draven plasma lances, and their price was this: integration. "The clause is explicit," she said, her voice carrying the weight of divine mandate, each syllable laced with the Empire's ancient timber. "Relocation to the capital. Proceed with ratification." Murmurs rippled through the council, approvals from the fleet admirals, hesitation from the sacred archivists. Thalis silenced them with a raised secondary arm, her gaze piercing Vorin.
"Ensure the convoy's integrity."
"I will not have this treaty unravel on some human malfunction." Far across the void in the dim-lit conference pod of the human vessel Endurance, Commander Mara Ives adjusted the neural link on her wrist, her daughter's small hand clasped firmly in her own. Jory watched wide-eyed as the holographic feed flickered to life, projecting the Varel negotiator's elongated form, emerald scales, multifaceted eyes glinting like faceted emeralds. "Commander Ives," the Varillian intoned through the imperfect translator, its clicks softening to near-human cadence. "The Accord requires your physical presence and that of the juvenile and Varen Prime. Custody transfer is standard for diplomatic hostages." "No." Mara's voice cut clean, steady as hull plating under stress. She multitasked without strain, one hand stroking Jory's hair while her other danced across the contract overlay, eyes scanning subclauses at a glance. Humans didn't abandon their young. It was bone deep, woven into every frontier run she'd pulled. The Varillian's crest twitched, a physiological tell she'd logged from prior briefings, signaling unease. "Good. Insert Clause 17B. Full parental custody remains with me. No separations. Protections include isolated quarters, independent life support calibrated to human tolerances, and veto rights on any medical or educational protocols for the child. Non-negotiable." The negotiator's tendrils coiled, a cascade of micro-expressions Mara read like schematics, calculation warring with protocol. Virelians prized hierarchy above all, their young reared in communal creches under sacred oversight. This human demanded autonomy, treating her offspring as a private asset. "Such terms undermine imperial sovereignty," it replied, voice sharpening. "The Empress will not. Transmit the revised draft now." Mara forwarded the annotated file, her mind already branching. If they balked on custody, pivot to resource audits. Humans excelled at those, spotting inefficiencies aliens rode overlooked. Jory squeezed her hand, whispering, "Mama, will they let us keep our room?" Mara smiled down, resilience steadying her. "They will, kiddo. Watch." Seconds ticked. The feed chimed acceptance. The negotiator's crest flattened in reluctant accord. Ratified. Convoy departs in 12 cycles. Back in the council chamber, Thalis intercepted the update via her throne's neural crown, a faint sneer curling her mandibles. Humans bargained like vermin clinging to scraps, yet they'd woven in protections without fracturing the Accord. Irrelevant. "Audit the convoy," she commanded Admiral Kress, her fleet master's obsidian armor creaking as he bowed. "Full security sweep. Their primitives may carry contaminants or worse. Dismiss any notion of threat? Foolish. No human reaches my capital unchallenged." Kress's multifaceted eyes narrowed, but he complied without demur. Thalis watched the deployment orders cascade across the hollow display. Scanners, interceptors, bioprobes. Humans were expendable pawns in greater games. Their endurance tales were spacer myths, not imperial fact. Still, protocol demanded vigilance. Her court would see the Empire's might unyielding. The motion arrived at dawn cycle, shattering the chamber's poised equilibrium. Archivist Lyra, voice of the conservative traditionalists, rose with scrolls clutched in all 6 arms, her faded gold scales etched with lineage runes. Empress, sacred law prohibits alien juveniles unbound by mandate oversight. Nullify the human clause. Their presence profanes the core worlds, risks the divine succession. Cheers erupted from her faction, priests, old blood nobles, while progressives shifted uneasily. The treaty teetered, ratification hung by Thalas's word. Thalas felt the weight settle, a familiar blade's edge. Lyra's play was cunning. Invoke antiquity to fracture the frontier bulwark. Draven raiders would feast on exposed yards. No. Her arms extended, silencing the din. The motion fails. Gasps rippled. Lyra's crest spiked in shock. I override by fleet prerogative and mandate authority. Imperial escorts deploy immediately. 3 cruiser wings to shepherd the convoy. The humans arrive intact. Treaty sealed, or heads roll in the void. Crest nodded approval, already signaling launches. Thalas met Lyra's glare steadily, propriety cracking just enough to reveal the steel beneath. Question my resolve again, Archivist, and your scrolls burn. The chamber bowed as one, tension coiling into obedience. Thalas rose, dismissing them with a sweep. The humans would serve their purpose, or be discarded. The private audience chamber gleamed under containment fields, its walls a mosaic of conquered nebulae captured in crystal. Thalas entered alone, her presence filling the space like a gathering storm. The human waited at the chamber's heart. Juvenile clutched close, small, fragile thing with downy hair and wide, unblinking eyes. Mara Ives straightened, no bow forthcoming, her posture that of a frontier captain facing equals, not gods. Commander, Thalas began, voice resonant yet probing. The accord binds us uneasily. Your clause on the child, unprecedented. Yield custody to crush wardens. It is custom. Mara's gaze held firm, unflinching. Jory pressed against her leg, but the woman didn't falter, her free hand resting protectively. Customs differ, Empress. Humans bond singularly. Separation fractures us. Jory stays with me. Full stop. No plea, no bluster. Just fact, delivered with the quiet endurance of one who jury-rigged life support through ion storms and raised a child amid them. Thalas's sensors registered the human's steady vitals, no spike of fear, no fatigue tremor despite cycles of negotiation. Intrigue stirred beneath Thalas's calm. Borellian's compartmentalized rearing, efficiency over sentiment. This human wove personal into political, refusing fracture. You presume much for a consort of convenience, Thalas pressed, crest flaring to test. Imperial law evolves. Mara's response came swift, eyes tracing the mosaic as if mapping tactical flows. Your archives note Draven adaptability, outpacing rote defenses. My patterns suggest hybrid protocols, human improvisation layered on Durrell structure. But first, Jory safety. Partner on that. Or the accord phrase. Thalas paused, secondary arms twitching. Dismissal curdled into assessment. The human read subtexts, court motions, convoy risks. Like a strategist, not a pawn. Her juvenile's presence anchored her, yet amplified resolve. No Varelian would endure such vulnerability without collapse. This one thrived. Very well, Thalas conceded, voice softening a fraction, formality yielding to nascent accord. Custody preserved. Quarters assigned per your clause. But know this, under my roof you prove worth, or perish. Mara nodded, a faint smile touching her lips as Jory peeked out. Fair terms, Empress. We start with the convoy audit. I've got efficiencies your scans might miss. Thalas signaled the doors, the packed ceiling in silence. A human and her child under her roof. No one had chosen this. Yet as the chamber sealed, a flicker of possibility ignited. Perhaps the primitives held unforeseen alloy. Thalas Baron swept from the sealed chamber, her iridescent robes whispering against the polished obsidian floors of the grand concourse. Convene the ceremonial synod, she commanded the nearest attendant, a lithe Varel with quivering antenna betraying his unease. The envoy's transit to the inner palace proceeds at dawn along the High Vale route, no deviations. Let the court witness our pact's first breath. The synod chamber hummed with the low thrum of holographic displays blooming like spectral flowers. Counselors clustered in their tiered alcoves, their multifaceted eyes glinting under the vaulted crystal dome. Thalas took her throne days, the weight of the divine mandate diadem steadying her resolve. The human pact was sealed, but visibility would bind it, or expose its fractures. Proceed with the schedule, she intoned, her voice a blade sheathed in silk. Full escort, Vanguard fleet drones, honor guard from the 7th Legion, and public feeds from every spire. The Empire watches. Murmurs rippled like heat haze. Lord Kalis, her rival suitor from the eastern marches, leaned forward, his crest flange pulsing crimson. A bold display, Divine One, yet primitives in the high veil? One misstep, and the veil's sanctity. Sanctity demands strength, Thalos cut in, her gaze pinning him. The treaty secures the frontier alloys we crave. Dismissal invites fracture. The vote passed in ritual unison, antennae dipping in formal assent. As the holograms dissolved, Thalos felt the political lattice tighten. Every eye on the convoy would amplify triumph or humiliation. Dawn fractured the horizon in shards of violet light as the convoy assembled. Mara Iva stood in the transport module's core. Jory clutched to her hip, the child's small hand gripping her uniform sleeve. The human vessel, sleek but archaic by Virel standards, locked into the high veil's magnetic cradle, flanked by iridescent drone swarms and legionary shuttles. Public feeds already buzzed across the Empire's nets, billions tuning in for the spectacle. A sharp chime pierced the cabin. Life support cascade failure imminent, primary conduit offline. Mara's pulse quickened, but her hands moved without haste. Jory's eyes widened. Mama, it's getting cold. Stay put, little one. I've got it. She set Jory in the restraint harness, then dropped to her knees beside the access panel. The air hummed with failing recyclers, frost already rhyming the viewports. BRL engineers had certified the module yesterday, yet here was sabotage, subtle and vicious, a microfilament severed in the power conduit, disguised as wear. No time for scans. The convoy accelerated into the veil's glowing artery, public eyes devouring every angle. Mara's mind raced through schematics she'd memorized en route, viral grids, human redundancies, frontier hacks. She pried the panel, fingers dancing over conduits pulsing with ethereal blue energy. Bypass the brake, route auxiliary from the inertial dampers, throttle via the waste recycler loop. Improvising a jury rig from spare thermal clips and a diagnostic probe, she spliced the lines. Sparks flew. The module shuddered. Jory whimpered, but Mara hummed a steady tune, her focus unfractured, juggling the fix, convoy telemetry on her wrist pad, and Jory's fear in her periphery. Online the system pinged, recyclers whirred back to life, warmth flooding the cabin. Mara exhaled, wiping sweat from her brow, and patched through to the lead shuttle. Ives to convoy command. Life support restored. Sabotaged conduit. Recommend full sweep. Attic crackled. Then a Virel officer's voice, laced with disbelief. Human? Confirmed? The grid is viral sealed. Sealed poorly. Sending schematics. She transmitted the bypass code, her voice calm as frontier dust. Jory beamed up at her. You fixed it, Mama. Not fixed. Bridged. Hold tight. We're almost home. In the palace's command nexus, Thalos watched the feeds with her engineers. The convoy's drama unfolding in real-time splendor. Alarms had flared mid-transit. Now. Silence. Report, she demanded, antennae taut. Chief Engineer Lyra bowed low, her flanges dimming in confusion. Divine One, the human. She rerouted the conduit manually. In under 4 cycles, our sweeps missed the filament shear. Thalos's core tightened. Impossible. Virel Tech demanded neural links, not crude hands. Compile full incident logs. Cross-reference security protocols. If the convoy falters once, what of the Veil's spine? Lyra's team scattered, hollows flickering with data streams. Thalos's mind turned. Primitives. Yet this Ives bypassed what her own experts overlooked. A flicker of unease, or intrigue, stirred beneath her regal poise. The convoy docked amid cheering spires, but the grand hall erupted before Mara could disembark. Lord Kalis strode forward under the vaulted arches, his entourage fanning out like venomous petals. Espionage, he bellowed, voice amplified for the assembled counselors. The conduit sabotage, self-inflicted, xenophile folly endangers the mandate. Gasps rippled, counselors' antennae lashed, flanges flushing ochre with xenophobic ire. Whispers of frontier vermin and treaty poison swelled. Mara stepped from the module, Jory at her side, face impassive amid the storm. Thales rose from her dais, silencing the hall with a raised claw. Kalis's accusation hung like a blade, public, damning. perfectly timed. Accusations demand proof, Lord Kalis, Dallas said, her tone ice over steel. The logs, present them. He thrust a holopad forward. Her bypass, alien to our grids. No loyal subject acts so swiftly without foreknowledge. Mara met Dallas's gaze steadily.
Foreknowledge? I read your schematics inbound.
Pattern was clear. Microshear at Junction 14. Anyone with field experience spots it, counselors muttered. Kalis sneered. Field experience? Primitives play with scrap. Dallas weighed the chamber's pulse. Kalis's faction swelled, the treaty teetering, yet the humans calm, unruffled, eyes holding no deceit, gnawed at her certainty. Enough, she decreed. The envoy and her charge will reside in the inner district under legionary guard. No contact beyond inquiry personnel. We sift truth from shadow. Kalis bowed, triumphant gleam in his eyes, but Dallas signaled her guard captain. As Mara was escorted inward, Jory's hand firm in hers, Dallas lingered on the dais. Detention secured the court. Isolation bred clarity. Yet discarding the human risked the alloys, the frontier. No, test her. In the shadowed antechamber, Thalas summoned Lyra. Grant the human limited access. Auxiliary palace grids. Under your eye. Let her prove her field experience on our systems. If espionage it unmasks. If competence. She trailed off. The unvoiced possibility coiling tight. Lyra's antennae quivered. Divine One. Unorthodox. Obey. Thalas turned to the viewport, the high veil pulsing beyond. Sabotage and accusation had twisted the pack's thread, drawing the earnest primitive closer than protocol allowed. Under her roof, under her watch, perhaps this alloy would temper or shatter. Mara followed the guards through labyrinthine corridors. Jory's steps echoing softly, the inner district's opulence pressed in, crystal veins pulsing light, air scented with ozone and spice. A viral overseer waited at a sealed vault door. Lyra, flanked by tech adepts. Commander Ives, Lyra said, voice clipped. Limited clearance, diagnostics only. Tamper, and guards end it. Mara nodded. Humble gratitude in her stance. Appreciate the trust. Show me the grid. Jonah settled on a bench with a provided holotoy content. As panels irised open, Mara dove in. Fingers tracing alien conduits, mind-mapping redundancies aliens navigated by right. Lyra watched, flanges twitching at the human's effortless multitasking, rerouting a flickering auxiliary while querying logs, all without neural spike. See here, Mara said, pointing. Echo of the convoy shear, same filament vice, not random. Lyra leaned in, amazement cracking her formality. You? Detected raw? Our adepts need cycles. Practice, Mara replied simply. No boast. Frontiers teach patterns. Their eyes met. A bridge forming. Tentative. Thalas's gambit had pulled her close. Now, competence whispered of deeper worth. From her overlook, Thalas observed the vault's feeds, the human's hands steady as stars. Kalis plotted in shadows, but this earnest ingenuity, held possibility. The Empire stirred. She would not yield it lightly. Counselor Vren's voice sliced through the vaulted chamber like a vibro knife, his frilled crest flaring crimson with indignation. The logs are irrefutable, Your Divine Majesty. Archive Sector 9, sacred repositories of the Mandate, accessed without clearance. The signature traces to the human envoy, Commander Ives. This is no mere oversight. It borders on sacrilege. Dalisparin sat enthroned at the head of the obsidian table, her armored pauldrons catching the lumen globe's cold light. The High Council encircled her, fleet admirals with their neural implants pulsing faintly, legalists in robes embroidered with archaic glyphs, and intelligence whispers like Kalis, whose shadowed eyes flicked toward her with veiled calculation. From the overlook feed still fresh in her mind, she knew the truth. Mara's hands in the vault, steady as stars unraveling a breach no Varelian tech had flagged. Yet here, in this den of scrutiny, propriety demanded steel. She raised a gauntleted hand, silencing the murmurs. Present the evidence, Thalas commanded, her voice a resonant timbre that echoed the Empire's unyielding core, and summoned the envoy. Let her speak. Screens bloomed across the chamber's walls, holographic logs scrolling in Varelian script, timestamps, access nodes, the human's biometrics stamped like an accusation. Gasps rippled as the recursive pattern emerged, a worm burrowing deeper with each query, siphoning fragments of fleet schematics and succession rights. Bren leaned forward, his mandibles clicking. See? It evaded our sentinels for cycles. If not for the audit trigger, the chamber doors hissed open. Mara Ives entered, Jory clinging to her side, the child's small hand gripped tight in hers. The human's uniform was crisp, frontier-worn at the edges, but her posture held no flinch. Thalos noted it. No plea in those steady eyes. Only focus. Jory's gaze darted to the counselors, wide but unafraid, mirroring his mother's quiet resolve. Commander Ives, Thali said, formal tones masking the intrigue coiling within. You stand accused of breaching the Imperial Archives. Explain. Mara inclined her head, a gesture of respect without subservience, then guided Jory to a bench at the chamber's edge, close enough for protection, far enough not to disrupt. With permission, Majesty. She approached the central holopad, her fingers dancing across its interface with a fluency that made the Virelian aides stiffen. No translator lag. She'd adapted their script overnight, Thalos recalled from the vault feeds. The access wasn't unauthorized. It was necessary. Watch. She keyed a subroutine, and the logs rewound. Patterns bloomed. Not a crude hack, but a fractal echo, looping back on itself like a serpent devouring its tail. Recursive breach, Mara said evenly, her voice carrying the calm of a bridge officer mid-crisis. It piggybacks legitimate queries, amplifying with each cycle. Your sentinels caught the surface ping but missed the depth. I isolated it here, a node highlighted, pulsing red, and patched the relay with a dynamic shunt. Data loss prevented. Zero exfiltration. The chamber fell silent as the simulation ran forward. The worm writhed, then shattered against the patch, fragments dissipating like ash. Vren's crest flattened, his eyes narrowing. An admiral muttered into his implant, querying archives on recursive protocols. Human concepts, alien to Virelian redundancy arrays. Thalis felt the fracture in her assumptions widen. Humans. Fragile. Short-lived. Politically expendable. Yet this one multitasked a child's safety amid accusation, spotted a flaw their vaunted systems ignored, and improvised a fix with code she'd glimpsed only hours prior. Possibility, indeed, but the Council demanded more than feats. They craved precedent. Impressive, Thalos allowed, her tone measured, but legality binds us tighter than code. Counselor Vren, your judgment? Vren rose, robes swirling. Ancient Statute 4-7. Vex from the Unification Wars, no off-world flesh shall hold court appointment within the sacred palace, lest dilution taint the mandate. The envoy's role as technical consort, temporary or not, violates this. Her presence endangers us all, especially with Kaelus's factions whispering of weakness. Kaelus's frills twitched minutely from his seat, a shadow play of ambition Thalos had long monitored. The chamber stirred. Admirals exchanged glances, legalists nodding like pendulums. Mara's hand tensed toward Jory, but her face remained stone, resilient, reading the room's undercurrents where virulence fixated on writ. Thalis rose, her presence filling the space like a dreadnought's shadow. Propriety cracked here, just enough. Not defense from sentiment, but strategy. Enough. The statute speaks of permanent dilution, not exigency. Commander Iva's appointment is provisional, forged in treaty necessity. To void it now invites chaos. Hostile states circle, our archives bleed. I defend it publicly. Her skills stabilize what our own have not. Stability first. Precedent bends to survival. Murmurs crested, then ebbed under her gaze. Vren subsided, though his mandibles ground audibly. Kaelus's eyes gleamed, plotting counter-moves, no doubt, but Thalis held the mandate's weight. She turned to Mara, voice lowering for the record. Your patch holds? It will, Mara replied. Simple confidence without boast. But the network's layered. Train your techs on the shunt protocol. They'll maintain it. Thalos paused, weighing. Share authority? Risky, with legalists baying. Yet the human's humility, offering knowledge freely, eyes on Jory even now, stirred something beyond politics. Partnership seed. Granted. You will train a corps, 10 palace technicians, under my oversight. Limited visibility. No fleet access. Prove the statute's exception worthy. Mara nodded, a faint warmth cracking her professional mask. Thank you, Majesty. We'll start at dawn. As the council dispersed, Thalis lingered, dismissing all but her trusted aides. Private review, she ordered a shadowed intelligence officer. voice like forged alloy, full spectrum on the human, Mara Ives. Capabilities, history, loyalties, and cross-reference Kalis's movements post-vault. The officer bowed, implant flaring. At once, Divine One. From the bench, Jory watched his mother pack the holopad, whispering, "You fixed it, Mama?" Like the ship stories? Mara's hand ruffled his hair, soft endurance in the gesture. Dallas observed from her throne the chamber emptying. Contradictions piled. Human frailty housing ingenuity. Her own mandate, once solitary, now threaded with alliance. In the antechamber, Mara knelt to Jory's level. "Yeah, kiddo. Just patterns. Like puzzles we solve together." But her eyes flicked to the doors, alert to the palace's coils. Dallas activated a private channel to her fleet command. Monitor archive integrity. In the envoy's core, discreetly. Possibility demanded proof, but the stirrings of respect, earned, not given, already reshaped the game. Later, in the dim glow of her strategy vault, Dallas reviewed the feeds alone. Mara's patch held flawless. The recursive ghost banished. The Aurelian techs would learn it rote, but the humans spark, adapting their systems mid-crisis, juggling inquest and ingenuity, defied dismissal. Kalis plotted. Statutes loomed, but this alliance breathed. She would not yield it lightly, nor, it seemed, would it yield her. Across the palace, Mara settled Jory into their quarters, the child's questions fading to sleep. Her mind raced ahead, training protocols, council fractures, the Empress's measured gaze. Humans endured. They built bridges from breaches. Tomorrow, she'd show them. Not for glory, but because it worked. The Empire stirred deeper, threads intertwining. The grand audience chamber echoed with the sharp chime of alien credentials striking the obsidian dais. Thalis Varen, Empress of the Varel Empire, straightened on her throne of woven starsteel. Her iridescent scales flickering from imperial gold to warning amber as the lead envoy from the Cathari Concord leaned forward. His multifaceted eyes gleaming with accusation. "Divine Sovereign," he intoned, voice a layered hiss through his translator grill. "Your pact with this fringe world human disrupts the economic lattice binding our borders. Local ore disputes escalate to embargo threats. Explain this treaty or face interdiction fleets at your gates." Dallas's primary advisor, Chancellor Ellen, shifted at her side, his frilled crest flattening in unease. The chamber's high vaulted walls, etched with the mandate's sacred helices, seemed to close in as murmurs rippled from the assembled court. Nobles, fleet captains, and protocol aides whose loyalties she knew too well to trust blindly. International pressure, here in her own seat of power. She inhaled the chamber's ozone-tanged air, steadying her pulse. Contempt for humans lingered in her veins like a faint toxin, but Commander Mara Ives had proven useful. Expendable no longer, perhaps. "Rise, Envoy Tarak," Dallas commanded, her voice a resonant cascade that silenced the room. "The treaty secures hyperlane stabilizers from human frontier yards. Technology your Concord covets but cannot replicate. Local disputes? Trivial shadows before imperial necessity." Tarak's mandibles clicked defiance. "Necessity that floods our markets with unregulated alloys? We demand audit rights, where the lattice fractures." Thalas's gaze flicked to the chamber's shadowed alcove, where Mara Ives stood unobtrusively with her child Jory clutched close. The human's dark eyes met hers for a fraction, a silent query. Dallas inclined her head once, the barest concession. Mara stepped forward, her posture unyielding despite the child's small hand gripping her tunic, and activated a compact holoprojector from her belt. "Envoy," Mara said evenly, her standard laced with frontier drawl filtering through the universal translator. "Your ore surpluses bottleneck at processing nodes. Varel yards lack the modular refiners for high-density extraction." The projector bloomed, schematics of Cathari freighters meshed with Varel supply chains, arrows pulsing in optimized flows. "Exchange protocol. Your excess ore for my design specs on adaptive refiners. Installs in under a cycle, boosts yield 27%. Neutralizes your complaint, stabilizes the lattice. Sign now, ships depart at dawn." Tarek's crest flared in surprise, his aides clustering to scan the projection. Thalas watched their physiological tells, the rapid flicker of scent glands, the hesitant mandible twitches. Humans multitasked like breathing. Mara had woven economic data, fleet manifests, and treaty subclauses into this on the walk from her quarters. Jory balanced on one arm. No fatigue in her stance. No boast. Just competence. as if plotting galactic trade pivots were child's play. Feasible, Turak conceded after a tense scan, his voice grudging. Provisional accord. But the human's role, endorsed by imperial decree, Thalos interjected, rising to her full height. Scales, shimmering authority. Chancellor Ellen, convene the chancellery. Draft formal addendum. Commander Ives elevated to provisional technical advisor. Her council binds in resource and hyperlane matters. Seal it before the envoys depart. Ellen bowed low, frills quivering. As you command, Divine One. Whispers erupted. Admiration from some, resentment from others. Alice felt the propriety of her court cracking, formal lines bending to accommodate this outsider. Yet it bought time, turned pressure into leverage. Mara deactivated the hollow with a nod, scooping Jory higher as if the exchange were mere routine. Thalos met her eyes again, gratitude unspoken, alliance deepening. The envoys withdrew under guard, accords tentatively inked. Thalos dismissed the court with a wave, but tension coiled in her gut, threads intertwined deeper indeed. She retreated to her strategium only to find alarms shrilling through the palace comms, outer wards breached. Reports flooded in. A cloaked cell, masked in shadow cloaks, had infiltrated the peripheral gardens. Target: the human child. Jory snatched mid-play from the warded play vaults where Mara had left him under minimal guard, her error trusting palace protocols too soon. Dallas's blood surged, scales hardening to obsidian black. A security breach this intimate reeked of court factions, perhaps tied to the Cathari provocation, or deeper treason. She strode to the outer ward command post. Mara, already there, face pale but jaw set, barking queries at stunned viral sentries. Jory's absence hollowed the air. Perimeter cams, reroute auxiliary feeds. Mara snapped, fingers flying over a jury-rigged console, adapting alien interfaces she'd mastered in days. Guards milled, frills limp in shock. Thalos entered like a stormfront. Report, Empress, a sentry stammered. 3 assailants, Jean masked, took the child toward the undercroft vents. Our patrol, compromised. Mara's eyes locked on Thalos, raw plea beneath professional steel. Thalos assessed. The human's resilience shone, pattern recognition linking breach vectors to palace schematics she'd shared in confidence. No hysteria, just adaptation. Thalos raised her voice, resonant command cutting chaos. Captain Voren, assemble Delta Guard, 20 blades, drone swarm. You answer to Commander Ives until recovery, her operational lead, my authority. Gasps rippled, Voren's crest spiked in disbelief. Divine One, a human. My decree, Thalos thundered, scales flaring. She threads the breach patterns you missed. Obey, or join the traitors. Mara didn't hesitate. Voren, ban drones to vent Nexus 3, thermal ghosts there. Flank left via service ducts. I'll take point right with half your blades. Endurance run. We push 2 cycles without rotation. Her voice brooked no doubt, multitasking orders with live cam feeds, predicting assailant dodges from subtle air recycler shifts, human intuition weaving alien tech. The team mobilized, Thalos shadowing from the command nexus, her fleet instincts approving the unorthodox weave. Mara led the charge into the Undercroft's labyrinth, dim lumens casting long shadows on dripping conduits. Guards huffed after the first rampart, frills wilting from the pace. But Mara pressed on, Jory's toy drone clutched as beacon. Pattern, they're looping to exfil pod, she murmured into comms, connecting vent flows to outer dock manifests. Creativity born of crisis. Aliens rote patrolled, she improvised. A skirmish erupted at the nexus, shadow cloaks decloaking, blades flashing. Mara dove, tackling one assailant mid-leap, her smaller frame enduring slashes that would fell virile hide. Voren's team closed the net, drones herding the cell. Jory's cry pierced the din. Mara scooped him free, bloodied but unbowed, passing him rearward before rejoining the fray. The cell subdued, interrogated on sight. Cathari sympathizers, bribed by inner court whispers, back in the strategium, Jory safe in Mara's arms. Thalos awaited them. The court watched, amazement etching their scales, whispers of impossible endurance, unseen patterns. Thalos had researched human archives in stolen hours, their normal pack bonds, relentless drives, now witnessed. Commander Ives, Thalos said, voice low, propriety yielding to connection. She unclasped the imperial torque from her secondary neck. a helix of star steel etched with mandate runes, emblem of trusted command. Wear this. It legitimizes your lead within these walls. No temporary grace. You wield it until threats dissolve. Mara accepted it. Fingers steady despite fatigue aliens would call shattering. Empress, thank you. We'll root the rot together. Jory peeked from her shoulder, tiny hand waving. Thalos allowed a crest raise. Rare warmth. Respect, mutual now. The human's humility masked depths that humbled her own empire. Yet foreign envoys lingered at the gates and court shadows deepened. Real responsibility handed, Thalos pondered the cost. Power shared. Throne steadied. Dreads bound tighter, peril and promise entwined. Lord Kalor thrust his crest high, the iridescent scales along his neck flaring crimson as he slammed a data slate onto the council dais. The kidnapping of the human whelp was no mere opportunism, divine sovereign. It exposes the rot of this treaty. Humans meddling in our sacred bloodlines, inviting chaos to our gates. I call for its immediate abrogation. Thalos Varen's mandibles clicked once, a measured restraint amid the chamber's rising murmurs. From her elevated throne, she surveyed the hardline faction clustering behind Kalor, their tails lashing in unison, eyes gleaming with the fervor of old mandates. The air hummed with their agitation, pheromones thick as incense. But she held her posture unyielding, the weight of the divine military chain across her shoulders a reminder of succession's unassailable line. Kalor's gambit was bold, weaving Jory's abduction into a narrative of imperial weakness, but it ignored the shadows. Operatives from his own border allies implicated in the snatch. Counselor Kalor, she intoned, her voice a silken blade cutting through the din, amplifies shadows into tempests. The child's recovery proceeds under competent hands. Shall we dismantle alliances on whispers alone? He leaned forward, spines bristling. Competent. A human leads the assault on our soil. This Commander Ives defies protocol, storms a Varel fort without sanction. Her spawn's peril justifies purge, not partnership. The council erupted. Advisors from the fleet clans demanding reprisals, their claws scraping stone in rhythm. Thalos felt the throne room's tension coil like a predator's spring. Kalor's play mobilized the purists, those who saw humans as fleeting political chaff, unfit for the Empire's core. Yet she recalled Mara's quiet resolve in the strategy alcove hours prior, the human's fingers dancing across holographic maps, plotting vectors no Varelian tactician had conceived. Power shared indeed, but necessity forged it. Across the frontier in the dim-lit command blister of the border fort, Mara Ives crouched amid the acrid tang of scorched conduits, her pulse steady despite the chaos. Jory's vital signs blinked green on her wrist pad. Alive, hidden deep in the sublevels, but time frayed thin. Varelian guards flanked her, their massive forms hunched in the narrow vents, mandibles grinding unease. Human, this tunnel collapses under our weight, rumbled Sergeant Vexar, his tail twitching. Protocol demands heavy assault. Mara flashed a tight smile, rerouting power flows on her makeshift console with one hand, while signaling drone paths with the other. Protocol gets us rubble. Watch. Her mind split effortlessly, calculating structural stresses from scavenged schematics, cross-referencing kidnapper chatter intercepted en route, modulating the fort's own seismic dampeners to mask their breach. Humans drilled this multitasking in frontier drills, juggle life support, nav and fire control without a second thought. To Varelians, wedded to rigid hierarchies, it bordered sorcery. A grate buckled ahead. She wedged through first, her compact frame slipping where their bulk strained. Flank left. Patterns a spiral guard rotation, every 90 seconds. Vexar hesitated, then mimicked her dart, his squad adapting her cues. They burst into the holding vault, phasers humming low. Two operatives, Kyler's border lackeys, by their insurgent sigils, spun, but Mara's improvised EMP pulse from a jury-rigged power cell dropped them cold. Jory huddled in a crate, wide-eyed but unharmed, clutching a Varelian toy Thalos had gifted. "Mama!" The boy launched into her arms, and Mara held him fierce, breath steady. No fatigue clouded her, 12 hours without pause, and clarity sharpened. Vexar stared, mandibles agape. "You foresaw their patrol weave from debris scans? We train cycles for such precision." "Pattern recognition," Mara said simply, bundling Jory as alarms wailed. "Humans spot the threads others miss. Let's extract." Back in the throne room, Thalos's cum chime discreet. Recovery confirmed. Operatives detained with evidence linking to Kalor's fringe allies. She rose, silencing the chamber with a crest flare. The child returns. Imperial forces mobilize now. Secure the frontier spans, but mark this punitive doctrine shift, no scorched reprisals that breed rebellion. Precision containment. Her fleet admiral, Lord Terran, surged forward, eyes narrowing. Sovereign. The populace boils. Public executions of the humans' raiders, no of her ilk, would sate them. Reprisals on human enclaves restore mandate honor. Her unsanctioned strike shatters precedent. Precedent bends to survival, Thalas countered, her voice steel over silk. Advisors bayed for blood. Mara's standing would crumble under spectacle executions. The human-branded rogue, populace inflamed against the treaty. Kaler smirked, sensing fracture. But Thalas envisioned the cascade, reprisals escalating to full revolt, empire fracturing while rivals circled. Mara's feet demanded reckoning, not punishment, but leverage. She activated the grand holoscreen, broadcasting fleet orders live, cruisers vectoring to seals, troops locking perimeters without orbital fire. Then, pivoting, she faced the chamber's heart. Commander Ives acted with foresight that preserved Virel lives and blood. I shield her from prosecution. Henceforth, provisional joint command, human ingenuity tempers our might. She restores order at my decree. Gasps rippled. Kalor's crest dulled to gray shock. Terran's tail still mid-lash. Thalas held their stares, authority uncracked. Strength and adaptation, not rigidity. Shadows of doubt flickered in her core. Sharing command risked her mandate, yet Mara's patterns had unraveled threats thrice now, threads bound tighter. In the fort's evacuation shuttle, Mara settled Jory beside Vexar, the sergeant awkwardly offering a ration bar. Her pad buzzed. Thalas's seal direct. Joint command proclaimed. Accompany Third Fleet deployment. Prove the Union. Mara's lips curved, weariness a distant hum. She'd juggle fleet syncs, child rearing, and Virelian protocols. Adaptability was human baseline. I accept, she transmitted, voice calm. Fleet cords locked. We'll integrate your shield arrays with human improv drones. Efficiency doubles. Vexar tilted his head, pheromones shifting to wary awe. You command now? With the Sovereign, after storming our fort? Mara nodded, strapping in as engines thrummed. Partnership, Sergeant. Your endurance holds lines. My angles find the brakes. Together, unbreakable. Thalas watched the confirmation blink across her throne display. Council murmurs fracturing into reluctant nods. Kalor's faction recoiled, but momentum shifted. Hardliners isolated, treaties rollback blunted. She dispatched the fleet writ. Mara embedded, her human traits now imperial asset. Court and crown teetered, yet in shielding the human who had reclaimed her own child, and by extension, steadied the realm. Thalas glimpsed equilibrium. Peril lingered in the envoys at the gates, shadows coiling deeper, but promise gleamed. An alliance forged, not in ceremony, but crisis. The shuttle pierced the frontier haze, Third Fleet beacons winking alive. Mara multitasked diagnostics, soothed Jory's questions, and queried Vexar on Virelian psyops, learning their cultural tells even as she taught evasion weaves. Vexar's mandibles parted in quiet wonder. Humans, persist without falter. Research our archives, none match this, she chuckled softly, just getting started. Thalas leaned back, the chamber emptying under her gaze. Power shared, throne steadied, but at what horizon's cost? Alarms shattered the chamber's hush, a cascade of crimson strobes pulsing across gilded walls like arterial blood. Thalas surged to her feet, her neural crown igniting with fleet-wide feeds. Enemy signatures blooming across the capital's void shields and allied empires' flotilla uncoiling from hyperspace, like vipers from shadow. Decapitation strike, precise, ruthless, aimed at her throne and the fragile treaty it cradled. Contingency Epsilon, she commanded, voice a blade of ice amid the rising clamor. Her guards snapped into formation, palace bulkheads sealing with resonant thuds, but her gaze sought the human. Mara Ives, already at a auxiliary console, fingers dancing across holographic overlays with unnatural fluency. The envoy's child, Jory, huddled nearby under a loyalist's wing, wide-eyed but silent. Thalas's mind raced through protocols etched in her bloodline's mandate. Isolate the core, purge intruders, rally the sacred fleet. Yet the assault's scope dwarfed tradition, coordinated from orbital lances to subsurface saboteurs, breaching sectors long deemed impregnable. She strode to the central dais, authorizing overrides that funneled auxiliary power to primary defenses. "Commander Ives," she projected, formal tones cracking just enough to convey Alliance's weight. "Your assessment." Mara didn't look up, her voice steady through the din. "Multiple vectors. Orbital barrage weakening the equatorial shield at 47% integrity. Ground teams tunneling via old maglev shafts, and EMP drones seeding chaos in the lower districts. Civilians trapped in the arcologies, evac routes jammed." She split her display into quadrants. One patching shield emitters with improvised relays. Another plotting evac corridors. A third syncing tactical drones to Thalas's fleet vectors. Multitasking. Seamless, as if chaos were mere calculus. Thalas's crest flared, Virillian awe at such division of focus. Her species excelled in singular command, unyielding focus. Humans, they wove threads into tapestries mid-storm. "Integrate your command," Thalas declared, palm slamming the authorization seal. Protocol shattered. A consort, human no less, granted Palace Nexus access. Courtiers gasped from shadowed alcoves, but Thalas held their stares unyielding. "The treaty binds us or we fall divided." Mara nodded once, sharp and grateful, her feeds merging with Imperial arrays. "Shield fix first. Rerouting plasma conduits from auxiliary bays. Bias 20 minutes. Evacs via sublevels. I'll vector civilian haulers through the maglev breaches before saboteurs consolidate. Fleet, flank their lead cruiser, target engine nacelles." Her hands blurred, adapting Virillian code on the fly, translating human improvisation into galactic syntax. Jory peered over the console's edge, whispering coordinates Mara integrated without pause. Explosions rocked the palace foundations, dust sifting from vaults overhead. Thalas gripped the dais, dispatching her elite phalanx to seal breaches while her mind interfaced with the divine armada. Enemy lances scorched the horizon, capital spires igniting in secondary fires. Yet Mara's lattice held, shield integrity climbing to 62%. Haulers threading civilian streams through kill zones with eerie precision. From the chamber's periphery, hardliner voices rose. Lord Kalor, his carapace etched with ancestral scars, flanked by faction enforcers. "Empress, this barbaric upstart unravels our sacred order." He lunged forward, manacles glinting from Mara's wrists, his cadre blocking loyalist paths. "Arrest her. Dissolve the pact before it dooms us." Thali's world, her presence a gravitational force. Neural Crown pulsed warnings, Kaler's allies mobilizing in adjacent halls, a coup veiled as loyalty. The assault outside raged, but this blade struck inward. "Stand down," she thundered, authority cracking into raw command. Guards hesitated, torn between mandate and blood oaths. Mara glanced up, eyes fierce but unpanicked, one hand shielding Jory while the other sustained the defense web. Thali saw it then. The human's resilience, optimism etched in her posture amid inferno. No plea, no flinch, only resolve mirroring her own. "You dare invoke reversal mid-blood?" Thalas advanced, crest blazing dominance pheromones that wilted Kalor's resolve. "Commander Ives is no consort of ceremony. She is my chosen partner in governance, equal in counsel, bound by pact and will." Gasps rippled. Ancient law forbade such elevation without ratification, yet Thalas pressed, mobilizing loyalists via Crown Link, secure the court, purge dissent. Kalor's enforcers faltered as Thalas's phalanx closed ranks, manacles clattering unused. He snarled retreat, vanishing into service ducts, but the fracture was sealed. Thalas turned to Mara, voice lowering to a timbre reserved for thrones shared. "Finish it." Mara's grid pulsed victory, orbital flanks collapsing the enemy cruiser in a bloom of plasma, ground saboteurs flushed by synced drones and Virillian shock troops. Evacs cleared 80% of arcology populations, shield at full. "Inbound reinforcements scattering," Mara reported. Exhaling only now, sweat beading her brow. Endurance that shamed Virillian limits, they break. Thalas watched the feeds, human pattern recognition linking subsurface tremors to evac paths, creativity fusing their tech with Viril rights. Her court, reassembling in stunned silence, bore witness. Whispers of "impossible" yielded to nods, amazement rooting in the aliens' quiet competence. As the last enemy signatures winked out, Thalas summoned the grand convocation. Courtiers flooded the chamber, Kalor's faction subdued but seething. Jory clung to Mara's side, a symbol unbroken. By divine military mandate, Thalos proclaimed, crown aglow, we ratify the pact eternal. Commander Mara Ives, technical consort no more. You are my co-ruler, wed in polity and person. Our empires entwine. Humanity's weave strengthens Virel steel. Mara met her gaze, humble surprise flickering before resolve. Honored. Empress. Together, the court erupted in acclamation. Hardliners isolated. The alliance forged in fire. Thalos felt the shift, not loss of power, but its multiplication. Fleets realigned, treaties sealed across channels. Yet as cheers faded, she drew Mara aside. Jory between them. You saw patterns we missed, adapted where we rigidified. Mara smiled faintly, wiping console grime. Just engineering a family through the storm. Your command held the line. Thalos's crest warmed, a Virelian sign of deep bond, alien to human senses but felt in shared glances. Power shared, throne steadied. She glanced to the horizon. Stars steady once more, but at what horizon's cost? No, the cost was illusion. True sovereignty bloomed in equals. She was born to rule, and learned that true power lay in finding one.